Secretariat at the back end, is it time to start the program? I need to be advised. This is Kema Bonta.
The Secretariat needs to start admitting attendees into. They should have been we have over 30-something persons in the waiting room. Secretariat, please.
Yes, please. The program can commence now. We've already started the webinar, and I believe that participants already joining.
You are still in practice mode.
We switched to the webinar mode, I think. Yes, yes. We have our participants with us now. That is a testament that we are already in webinar.
Advised that it's time to begin the program. Okay, we're about 38, I understand. Good morning, everybody who is attending. We will start this program in just a few seconds. We thank you for coming in on time. Just give us a few seconds. We will start shortly. Thank you. All right, I think we're all set. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's program, which is the 16th AfICTA Quarterly Conference. It's my pleasure to welcome you all and to say my name is Kema Bonta. I'll have the honor of facilitating the program for today. We will start formally with welcome remarks and the context of the program for today. It's my pleasure to ask the chair of AfICTA, Wulandi Exner, if she could turn on her microphone and properly welcome you. I didn't do that, so you have that responsibility, Wulandi. And please give us the context of the program for today as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inye, and thank you for facilitating today's session. I'm doing a quick sound check. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Wonderful. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, and our honored guests, depending where you are connecting from all over the world. I do hope you're having a wonderful day. And as the facilitator had indicated, my name is Wulandi Exner, and I'm the chairperson of AfICTA. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome everybody to AfICTA's 16th webinar. Today we gather to engage in meaningful discussions surrounding the African Union's digital agenda for 2030, a crucial framework guiding our continent's digital transformation. As we stand on the brink of a new digital era, the AU Digital Agenda 2030 serves as our roadmap. It represents our collective ambition to harness technology to promote inclusive growth, bridge the digital divide, and empower all Africans, regardless of their socioeconomic background. However, there are various challenges which hinder progress, and these include things such as policy gaps, governance issues, infrastructure deficits, and limited access to digital tools across this continent. We will hear insightful perspectives from industry leaders, policymakers, and tech enthusiasts who are at the forefront of this digital revolution. Let us remember that the success of the AU Digital Agenda 20 not only on technology, but also on collaboration among governments, private sector players, civil society, and the citizenry. Together, we can build a resilient and sustainable digital ecosystem that uplifts our communities and drives socioeconomic development across the continent. I encourage you all to actively participate in the discussions today. Share your ideas and connect with one another. Your insights are invaluable as we work towards realizing our shared vision. Thank you for being here, and let us embark on this opportunity to thank our various sponsors. These are data analytics and privacy technologies, Contemporary Consulting, DigiSphere, .ng, and Diamond Security. And of course, the ongoing, who without your support, we at AfICTA cannot fulfill our vision, which is to fulfill the promise of the digital age for everyone in Africa. And other engagements that we encourage multi-stakeholder dialogue to foster and accelerate an IC movement in Africa. So at this point in time, I want to wish everybody a fruitful discussion, and I hand over back to Inye. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for setting the context of this interesting day and program. I will take a few minutes to simply introduce our resource persons before we proceed. And I'd like them, when I finish, I would ask them to say a word or two to the audience so they can identify them. So our principal speaker this morning, well, it could be afternoon or even wherever you are, I'm happy to announce him as Mr. Adil Suleiman, who's Senior Policy Officer, Telecommunication and ICT Department of Infrastructure and Energy, African Union Commission. Has a master's degree. That's right, that's him. He has a master's degree in computer engineering. He's a graduate of George Washington University School of Engineering. He has more than 20 years of international experience in various fields involving communication networks, asset management, resource evaluation, and policy preparation. Adil is a former staff of Intelsat in the US and worked there for more than 14 years. Since 2012, that's correct, he has been assisting in different capacities the Information Society Division within the Department of Infrastructure and Energy of the African Union Commission. We're happy to have him this morning, quite on time, and he'll be giving a lead presentation. Thank you, Mr. Suleiman, for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me just extend warm welcome to all attending, and also to meet Yolanda Extra, the new chair person of the AfICTA. Welcome, and glad to meet you, meet you actually, and looking forward to our future collaboration and to continue the work we have been engaging in with previous chairs. I'm very happy with this discussion. I think it's timely that we are engaged in this discussion. I think this discussion also is happening within Africa and also globally. Digital transformation strategy.
Are you speaking already?
Yes, I'm talking. I don't know if you can hear.
And have a goodwill before we can take the full presentation. Would that work for you, sir?
Not a problem. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for speaking to the audience. At this time, we will get back to you. I just wanted to mention that we have two other resource persons to you all who are attending. I have next Mr. Alex Tali, the CEO of Rwanda ICT Chamber. He's done a lot of work which involves bridging the gap between private and public sector players in ICT industry, as well as overseeing and establishing new innovation centers for technology startups. Among them are K-Lab, Fab Lab Rwanda, and a new applied research labs. Before ICT Chamber, Alex was a freelancer software developer at the University of Kigali in the Faculty of Finance and Banking. He holds a Master of Science degree in Investment and Quantitative Finance from the University of Westminster in United Kingdom. Good morning, Mr. Alex.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us and involving us in this very important conversation. Nice to be here. Looking forward to the discussions today. Indeed, the AU agenda is very, very key, and can't wait to share and to discuss and learn from the conversations today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So our third resource person, I'm happy to introduce Maud Ajele Ashong Elliott. Mrs. Asha Elliott is a lecturer She focuses on driving digital transformation in education and society, as on integrating technology to empower women and promote digital inclusion. As a champion of digital transformation, she has been instrumental to training and mentoring young women across Ghana, encouraging them to embrace STEM education and digital skills at the secondary and tertiary levels. Maud also serves as the Vice President of the Internet Society Ghana chapter. So good morning and welcome. If you could say a word to our audience. Maud, are you still there?
Good morning. Yeah.
Great. That's Mrs. Elliott. Great. She'll be on the panel this morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you're logging in from. Thank you. So let's pause now for a short goodwill message. It's my pleasure to ask a key member of AfICTA, who's been playing several roles in the institution for many years. He's in attendance now, and I thought it would be nice to ask him to just deliver a goodwill message. Mr. Shegu Olugbele, you've got 2 minutes. If you can turn on your microphone, we'll listen to you for just 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share my goodwill. I'm highly honored to be with you. It has always been an inspiring journey for me to be part of the AfICTA as we look toward the policy issues concerning digital trade. I want to assure you that we are very successful deliberations. Thank you.
Okay, so fantastic. Thank you for the short address. So I think it's now time for us to listen to Mr. Suleiman, who's given the key presentation this morning at this program. Please, sir, could you turn on your microphone and then speak to the audience? You've got about 30 minutes to make your intervention.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I think I would not go for 30 minutes because I think it's important to have a discussion and also just to hear from the audience what their thoughts are. And I think engagement is very important in this kind of platforms. So basically, what I want to start off with, I think it's, as I said initially, it's timely that we're having this discussion. This is happening also at the UN. The UN SDGs and also the AU Agenda 2063, and as well as the AU Digital Agenda in the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa. They're facing some obstacles, and I think it's high time for us to have an evaluation of all these frameworks and see how what are the issues and try to resolve these issues so that we can move swiftly with the implementation of these frameworks. Indeed, at the UN level, there is an effort to develop a global digital compact with the aim to bridge, the digital divide, data divide, innovation divide, and as well also to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs. In Africa also, we have developed an African Digital Compact. In fact, it was developed even before the Global Digital Compact, and also with the same aim, try to address these issues that you spoke about. The speaker spoke about initially, and I think it's important that we're having this platform to discuss some of these issues. And I encourage everybody to look at the African Digital Compact. It's an effort from an African perspective to address some of these challenges. And I think the good news about the African Digital Compact, it has actionable goals and objectives, and even roles and responsibility are assigned to some of these actions. So indeed, I look forward to engage in these discussions and to answer some of the questions that they may arise from this discussion. I stop here. I think, as I said, it's good to have a conversation rather than a presentation. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. I like that format. Thank you, sir. You want us to engage in some interactions more than just having to give a paper, a presentation. So that's fine. I would, we have a panel coming on shortly, but let's open the floor for any comments anyway that you want to throw up. Anybody can throw up. Otherwise, I can lead with a few of the questions that you could probably give insights to. But let's see if there are any hands up. If it's possible to ask questions, would Secretariat at the back end let comments by text or whatever means come on at this time, seeing he has requested for some kind of interactions.
Okay, so we have a hand or two raised, so we'll be giving them the opportunity to speak.
Yes, please. Let the first person speak. The first hand up.
Hi, everyone. Good morning from Ghana.
Is that to
I
stay?
must say,
Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
please, I must say, I am connecting from Kumasi, Ghana. The first speaker did mention of the Africa Digital Compact, which was created way before the Global Digital Compact. I want him to highlight more on this, and it did take into account multi-stakeholder engagement, or did it take what we've seen in the Global Digital Compact is the introduction of the word multilateralism. And I would like to know that of the African Digital Compact, did it take into effect multilateralism or multi-stakeholderism? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Say, did you hear him clearly, Mr. Suleiman?
Yes, I did.
Would you want to respond, provide insights to the question?
Not a problem. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, that the African Digital Compact was developed, yes, using a multi-stakeholder approach. And indeed, we have a number of consultations with the stakeholders, groups, you know, be the government officials, civil society, academia, business, you name it. Even we had a special session for the ICT industry in Africa. So basically, it was a multi-stakeholder looking at this issue from an African perspective. You mentioned the infrastructure issues that, of course, you know, is impacting Africa. Also, the issue of capacity building and skill development. I think this is very crucial for Africa with the emergence of this new technology. We need to make sure that we have this ecosystem of developing capacity across the value chain. And as well, also, the digital compact is designed to promote socio-economic development and creating jobs. I think is important. And I think to that end, I think also it has also a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship, innovation, particularly for youth and women. Of course, Africa being a young continent, I think that was a major emphasis on the compact, and of course this multi-stakeholder approach of implementation. It has also an implementation plan, the African Digital Compact, and you will be surprised. Now we have been approached by a number of partners wanted to implement certain aspects of this digital African Digital Compact. So as I said, it's a big document, but I would encourage everybody to have a look at the document to understand more. And I think we also approaching the Summit of the Future, where this also going to present it to the UN as a contribution from Africa. So I hope that addresses your question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's take the second question. I can't see the hand up. We had a second person who wanted to ask a question.
Yes, there is Natifa Taluba, if you be allowed to speak.
What name?
Nandifa Saluba.
Nandifa. Why not? Yes, please.
The secretary need to enable her to speak.
Please turn on her microphone.
Oh, yes, sir. Just a second, please.
Okay.
Thank you very
much.
Now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Clearly.
From South Africa, a member of the IGF ZA. Thank you for allowing us opportunity to engage with you. My question, I hear you that in terms of the plan, we're looking forward to presenting the African perspective of the compact to UN. But allow me to ask the following questions. Should I say, using the treaty language, the domestication or the customization of the African perspective into the various states, how far have we gone in terms of that? And I'm asking this because it has specific implications on how we reposition the IGF mandate. That's one, but also it then has implications on the interface between the digital compact agenda and the Gen AI agenda in Africa, and how these are then are enabled for the socio-economic development of women, children, and people with disabilities. And I'm saying this, and allow me to finish off by saying, we've been talking about emerging technologies, and I've been one of the advocates for us having emerging technologies. And one of the areas that we are not tapping into is actually to look at our inclusive education, where we intentionally capacitate and enroll our people that are living with disabilities, because the technological astuteness is situated a lot in that particular sector of people. If you want an example, look at Nokia in Sweden and the fact that actually developed Nokia. The list is long. So my question then is, how are we enabling that the capacitation how are we enabling that Africa and her rooms are ready before we go to UN? The second one, how are we enabling that Africa, the Digital Compact, and the Gen AI agenda actually are meeting together that enable the people designated groups to take advantage of the socio-economic trajectory? Thank you very much.
Excellent. Excellent questions.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions. I think these are very pertinent and excellent questions, as mentioned by the program director. Indeed, at this stage, we are working on raising awareness around the African Digital Compact. And in fact, also there is an accompanying continental AI strategy. So together are going to be presented during the Summit of the Future. But the implementation at the member state level has not yet started. We are working to raise awareness and then get some political buy-in. I think, as you mentioned, as you can imagine, in Africa, we need to get the leaders to rally and champion some of this African Digital Compact. We had workshops and with the UN. The African group at the UN, the African group in Geneva and Brussels. So we have been doing a lot of awareness raising campaign around the African Digital Compact. We did also one with the all the 55 African member states, and they seem, and actually we also, one of the objectives of this is to equip this Africa group at the UN with some of these common positions, so that when they speak at the UN, they are capable and they know what is what African positions on several aspects that to be raised during the discussions. And I'm glad you mentioned the IGF and the IGF mandate. I think indeed the compact also touch on existing processes and new processes that are being proposed at the UN level. And of course, for us in Africa, we mentioned that in the compact, that the IGF was very successful. And our recommendation is to kind of expand the scope of the IGF so that it can tackle some of these new emerging digital governance issues, be it the AI issues, all these emerging, but instead of focusing only on internet governance issue, we would like to see this mandate, would like to see the scope expanded to cover new emerging digital governance matters. So I think it's important that the IGF is kept, but of course strengthened. There were several new processes that were proposed at within the Global Digital Compact. We see in Africa this is something that we don't welcome, of course, because even with the IGF, we are struggling to participate. we would like to see existing processes being strengthened and the scope of the existing processes being kind of expanded so that they can also tackle some of these new emerging issues. One thing also I forgot to mention, that the African Digital Compact was premised on all AU frameworks, the AU Agenda 2063, the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa, the AU Data Policy Framework, and you name it. All the frameworks, the Digital Compact, some of these recommendations of the Digital Compact were taken from these AU frameworks. So, and also some of the sectorial strategies like e-health, e-education, and to the question on education, I think there's some recommendation in terms of e-education and the education strategy for Africa that was developed as part of the digital transformation strategy. I stop here. Thank you. I hope that addresses the question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the insights to those questions. We appreciate your intervention. At this time, I would like to yield time to one of our sponsors who actually gave the goodwill message when we started, Ambassador Shegu Olugbele. I think he would like to weigh in at this time. Shegu, please turn on your microphone if you can, where you are.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I thought once again. I also want to extend my greeting to Mr. Sulaiman. It's nice to see your face once again. Just asked a question from the private sector perspective, looking at the potential benefit of the digital compact. I did a little bit of research, and I came about these potential benefits. For example, the one that has to do with increased digital access and connectivities, and then enhancing greater trust and confidence. Now, from the business perspective, I want to ask that how does the digital compact, the global digital compact, how will it impact the African ICT industry? Are we going to look at a situation where we're going to have our law, another level of regulations or another layers of regulatory imperatives? Then how is it going to impact our business investment drive? So I'm just concerned about the impact on business as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If I may, Program Director.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador. I think these are also pertinent questions. Indeed, some of these concerns that you are raising, I think we've also they are being reflected in the African Digital Compact. We are recommending against creating new frameworks. What we are recommending is to build on existing regional frameworks. And if there are some gaps, maybe put together some guidelines and so that these can be harmonized, all these regional frameworks and standard or guidelines, so that instead of creating new frameworks built on existing regional frameworks, and create guidelines, standards, so that these frameworks can be harmonized, I think is important. And indeed also on the impact on the IC industry in Africa, we see that some of the African challenges have been overlooked in the Global Digital Compact, and we try to make sure that African concern challenges are also reflected in the Global Digital Compact. I give you a few examples. For instance, benchmarking, like where we are today in the world. Some of the data that being referenced do not take into account the African realities. So we are trying to, we alerted the UN that it has to be benchmarked on the African reality, and even some of the issues that, some of the goals that we have in Agenda 2063, they have also to be reflected as also so that the not only the challenges of Africa to be reflected, but also the aspiration of Africa, they have also to be reflected, because some of the goals that are set, they may not be realistic for Africa. And we, in that respect, I think we want the UN to realize that Africa, they have also a path towards achieving certain goals, but of course, we have to take into account that, you know, we have issues, and then we need to resolve this issue so that achieve the goals, the intended goals that are there. So just basically, we also, in fact, we are also calling for a digital cooperation forum within Africa. So this forum is going to be looking at Africa issues. Is going to also address knowledge transfer. I think it's very crucial in this digital transformation. We need also, this is going to be also also an investment facilitator. I think it's crucial, and also innovation hub. So this digital cooperation forum is the process that we are recommending. And of course, welcome people from outside Africa to participate in terms of investment, knowledge transfer, and even sharing some success story about their innovation and so forth. So I think this is an important element of the compact, where African issues are going to be raised and addressed from an African perspective. So I think this is an important kind of like an outcome of the digital compact, African digital compact, which is different from the global digital compact in that it is going to be focusing on African issues and try to resolve these issues from an African perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I wanted to say that this would be like a completion of your presentation, even though it featured questions. We'll have another round of questions after we listen to the panelists, but it's good that we have gotten insights into the key issues regarding the digital compact. But let's now return to the panel, which had planned for this program. The thinking was to have a triple helix model where we have academia, industry, and government. Representing academia will be Mrs. Maud Ajele, who is a lecturer, incidentally, and has deep insights into educational issues and, of course, women issues. And then we also have Alex, who has had deep experience in the private sector, working in the ICT chamber as a CEO. So we will then bring them on now to intervene, and I say that they are at liberty to make presentations for first 5 minutes to articulate their perspectives on any of the two helices, academia and industry. We don't yet have a government person who can weigh in at this time, but those two will do for the purpose of today's event. So who would go first? I would recommend that we listen to the lecturer speak to us about the educational perspective of the AU agenda, digital agenda for 2030. Is Maud ready to speak? And would you make a presentation, or would you just go to it straight away?
Okay, let me share a small slide. But you said 5 minutes, so if you can give me access, I could share my slides, or I could just
Okay.
speak.
You have the access, please.
And meanwhile, we'll have a comment here about, if you can read the text message, you will get to know the background Mrs. Uduma wants us to cover. We will, at some point, highlight them more. Thank you. Please go ahead with the presentation.
Okay. Good morning from Ghana. It's 9:42 a.m. here, and I just wanted to just make some few highlights about the role of educational institutions in the AU digital transformation strategy. But before we delve into that, I felt I should sort of define what digital transformation is. And I'm sure after we go through this, we all know whether we are really using, whether we are really on the digital transformation path or highway. It's a broader strategic organizational change that involves the integration of digital technologies in all aspects of business, business operations, culture, and then customer experience. So the idea is that we have to reimagine business models. We need to, and then the processes and the practices in order to leverage on the full potential of digital technologies with the intention of driving innovation, agility, and competitiveness. And from this, what we could say is that when you want to talk about digital transformation, it should involve, in fact, the main thing should be change in mindset, which at first, because if the people, one, do not understand the vision, the mission, where we are going, for them to sort of prepare themselves psychologically, sociologically, it's not going to even start. We should also make sure that people are capable in terms of, apart from learning, whether formal or informal. And then we should also have change in organizational structure. So we realize that there's a whole fundamental shift in strategy. It's not, when we talk of digital transformation, we are not looking at the way I'm seeing Africa. We are not sort of bold to change. We just want to take our time and do parallel things when it comes to technology. When we talk about digital transformation, there is a whole fundamental shift in change in mindset, in capabilities, in structures, organizational structures, in leadership, and all that. So this is what I really wanted to put across. So when you look at the conceptual framework of the AUDT strategy, in summary, just wanted to let all of us see that this is it. And you will see that looking at the foundation pillars, the environment, the digital infrastructure, digital skills, human capacity, and all that. In all these categories, you will see education playing a role. Education playing a role. For me, my message today is we are looking at digital transformation, but we are not starting from the right places. We need to be bold in changing things, and that has to start with education. This is Africa. I believe in contextualization. We have our own cultures, we have our own norms that we want to work with, and we need to come together and make sure that we understand where we are going. Education must start from the basic level. Digital education, introduction to digital education, digital skills should not be high school level or high education level. I mean, we shouldn't begin from that. We can all attest to the fact that our children, even as at even a year old, 2 year old, are able to, hold mobile phone, smartphones, and even go around it. Why won't we use it as an opportunity to educate them, use it even as a tool, as an education platform? This is where we should start from. And while doing that kind of education, digital interests, digital mindsets will be imbibed into us as Africans. For the educational institutions, ours is to, make sure that our populace have digital skills. You know that. Ours is to also develop, curriculum to fit the agenda. Ours is also to focus on STEAM as science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and then research development. The major challenges, most countries, we can all attest to the fact that we have a huge infrastructure gap. The trainer of trainers, and that is teachers, have not been trained properly to even train. And then access inequality. I wouldn't want to really talk about women, persons with disability, the undeserved, but it is obvious that there's access inequality, especially even as the lady who just made the comment, especially even the development of the technologies, assistive technologies, that's going to help in this aspect. So what are some of the strategies? COVID taught us something. It taught us that everything and anything is possible, if only we are willing to change. Sometimes normally change is difficult, right? But it must be enforced if we know that this is good for the people. Educational curriculum must be reformed from the basic level to the higher education level. I did few studies, this is a bit sidebar, I did few studies in the judiciary where I was looking at how they use technology in the judiciary. The judiciary is a very conservative environment, and change in that industry is a bit difficult. So now inculcating technology in the way they do things, you realize that it's a bit gradual, it's progressive. It's not as fast as it should be. Why? Because of the culture of the place. But I realize that if you want change, when it has to come to the use of technology, it has to start from the basic level. If it is part of their education, I'm sure they would grasp it and accept it and realize that there will be a whole generation of people who understand that we need to use technology. But do we need to wait for a whole generation to pass before we imbibe or inculcate technology in the different sectors that we have? No. So we need to find ways of pushing this kind of agenda. And one of the main things that can do this is leadership. If our leaders decide that, listen, it is time for us to be part of the technological revolution, I guess everybody will tow along. After reading the AU Digital Transformation strategy, I was just telling myself, if AU has this beautiful strategy, why don't they find ways of making sure its member states also implement it? And in all these beautiful things, one thing I see is monitoring, evaluation, making sure that there's compliance. Is the implementation things. One of the strategies that could also work is partnership with the private sector. And it's extremely important. I saw the members of AfICTA. It's a great organization. And if all these people come together and then with government, what can stop us in making sure that these agendas are achieved? Innovation hubs and research centers. Maybe because I'm a lecturer, but I feel we are not investing enough into research and development. We are not investing enough. Most of the grants that are won around are not coming from within. And that should tell you that whatever research we are doing, we are rather collecting data to make other continents better. Let's invest in research and development. Inclusive and gender sensitive approaches must be is key in this. Targeting the underrepresented groups, as aforementioned. And one thing we are not really paying attention to is financial literacy. I know we are talking about digital skills, but financial literacy is important because now we are moving toward the digital economy, cashless economy, and it must be part of the digital skills and kind of learning that must be put across for people to also learn it and stay safe within that ecosystem. And then the expansion of infrastructure and access to affordable internet and devices. I just wanted to throw a little light on research in Africa. Looking at this came for Clarivate, a great research group that looked at the research output of Africa from 2014 to 2023. And you see that it's been progressive, but we can do better. And this could work when we invest more in research. And when we invest in research, it will be easy to even generate content which is local, which is contextual, which will work for Africa. When we invest in research, it empowers us to have the right data for the right kind of decision making. And so far, we identify these 10, everybody's involved in research. I realized that South Africa and Egypt are pushing a lot. And if you ask the question, how are they doing it? And what can we learn from them? So this is what I have this morning for all of us. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Excellent. This is more like a pep talk to wet the ground. And we'll listen to your colleague in a moment. I just wanted to throw a question to you and ask the rest later on after he has spoken. Would you, since you talked, your background is education, and you've talked a lot about education, as it were. So why don't you just take a few minutes to give us more information about how educational institutions are being integrated into the digital transformation strategy to prepare for future generations? And from your experience, has there been any challenges in this integration? How has it been done, and are there any challenges? Just a bit before we get your colleague to intervene as well.
I just spoke about the challenges that are being faced by all educational institutions, and the major thing is infrastructure.
Fast tracking.
Yes.
Okay.
Infrastructure. So that's one major thing. And of course, even with the universities, we want to encourage e-learning. And that has to be on a platform where we have to use internet. Do we have access to high resolution? You understand what I mean. The internet the speed has to be high. We have to make sure it's stable. We have electricity. These are the infrastructure gaps I'm talking about. And then, and even access to the devices, which of course, not everybody has access to these devices. Access to these devices, and even the teachers. The people to obtain digital skills do not have so the strategy is to develop new curriculum that would help us achieve this goal, which has sort of started. And one thing I have seen is that ensure us sort of encourage, I wouldn't use the word force, digital is something at the university. So you realize that it would it will force parents in a way to, get their children the laptops. And then it will force parents in a way to make sure their children have access to internet. Learning platform vis-a-vis the physical. They also go online to watch YouTubes, make all the other online courses, So these are sort of intentional, not only about the hard, lower level. We shouldn't just education. We will be amazed what happens when we introduce, digital skills to those at the basic level, especially if we use gamification in a way of teaching. Our children love playing games. Why won't we use that? A platform to, and it's also an opportunity to teach them about our culture through games. So we have all the resources available in a way, but it's the implementation and making sure that every country sort of understands it and tags along. I reiterate that digital transformation starts with change of mindset. Change of mindset. And one tool that we should use as Africa is the media. The media has a lot of power to let people understand where we are going. The media has a lot of power to that agenda in changing the mindset and letting them know about the digital revolution. And then the teachers would also take it up from there. So imagine this is where we are going. They go to the teachers are saying it, wherever they turn, even in churches, in the mosque, all their religious gathering, everybody is talking about technology and how we're going to imbibe technology in the specific sectors that we are. I'm sure the shifts and the kind of change that would occur would be faster than would anticipate. So this is what I
Great.
have.
Thank you. Before I let you off momentarily, I would highlight a few things still. The most, for me, listening to you, the most important challenge so far is infrastructure. And then there's this aspect also of the mindset change. But I wanted you, maybe when you speak next, to make specific recommendations. Who will be responsible for infrastructure? How do we get the kind of broadband we're talking about? Who do we hold accountable? I'm happy in your second point for the element of conscientization and awareness creation. Yes, but again, media is broad. How do we make the media? Are you recommending media organization, civil society organization, or whatever, in specific terms, so we can have good policy response to know who will hold accountable? Next time when we talk about these issues, we'll say these and that were highlighted, were informed that you might be responsible for ABC. How far have you gone on that path? That, for me, is really what we want to drill down to. But thank you so far for the presentation and for your responses. We'll yield some time now to your colleague, Alex. Alex represents the industry, the second part of the triple helix. So let's hear, if you're ready, do you want to make a presentation?
No, I'm not making a presentation. And I thought that it was a panel and we have questions, so happy to respond to the questions. But picking up from some of the aspects that have been touched in terms of infrastructure, digital skills, and literacy, and basically the key aspects of the AU agenda. I think we've been making some progress, a lot of progress across the continent, depending on where we are. There's still a lot of work, and I agree with the professor that what we need to look at we need to take a holistic view of digital literacy. And higher learning alone is not enough. We need a digital literate population if we are going to bring home the rest of the other aspects of the digital economy growth. And I think the work from early stage primary school or kindergarten, whatever the level is really, really important. But over to the moderator for the questions. Just wanted to chip in.
Great. Thank you very much. Actually, what you've done is what we wanted to highlight a few things, whether through slide presentation or just by speaking the way you just did, but from the private sector perspective. But here is my quick question before I open the floor for others to ask theirs and respond to what you're saying. You highlighted the fact that we need skills, digital skills. We need training. So that's okay, but who will do the training? That's my interest. I like to zero in on some entity or component we can hold accountable in time to say, we think this is your duty, your responsibility. How are you going about it? From the private sector perspective, would it be private sector who would impart those skills, or would it be government, for instance? How do you respond?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think I can only speak from the experience in Rwanda.
Why not?
It is kind of an outlier in some aspects, but I think there are some elements that are cut across even other states. So our journey, or our digital transformation journey as a country, back to around the early 2000s when a national plan, Vision 2020 was laid out. Best economy, and that looked into space and saying, okay, how do we clean this up so that we open up the market competition? So that was the first space, the first thing. But also at the education level, at the literacy level, the education level, president committed what used to be a military barracks to be transformed into a College of Science and Technology. And that became like the foundational institution that has been training for the last 23, 25 years, engineering, ICT engineers in the country. It's now the College of Science and Technology. It used to be the Kigali Institute of Science and Technology. And that has fed into other aspects, including the most recent investments, which have seen introduction or attraction of investments from Carnegie Mellon University setting up shop in Rwanda with about 3-4 graduate school programs and a student base that is Pan-African. Around only, I think, 40% of the student base is from Rwanda. The rest are to scholarships, Africa level. I mean, everyone has access to the same scholarship, and opening that opportunity to the private sector as well, because the students come back and work in the private sector, also work in public sector. But it's coming from all over, triple helix, like you mentioned. So whose job is it? It is our job, all of us. Our work as I've been heading the ICT chamber since 2012. And our collaboration with the government has been one that looks at joint efforts, strategizing together, working on policy instruments together, reviewing regulatory instruments together, getting and collecting feedback from the private players. And these strategies that were split into 4 5-year programs started off as a national information communication infrastructure plans, and then evolved into Smart Rwanda master plans. And today they've been embedded into the national national strategy for economic transformation that is driving our 2050 vision. And they've been very, very clear on the different aspects covering the infrastructure. So today, our infrastructure coverage, 4G internet coverage goes to 96%. Mobile broadband is about 65%. Access structure here really means it's not yet ownership or access in terms of the citizens. But if you have a device or a device that has access to 4G, 96% of the country, you're able to plug in and you have access to that. Digitization. So the infrastructure layer is one, but then you come to the next layer, which is services. Okay, now the services also, the private sector has been involved a lot. One, digitization of at the layer of digitizing government services, but two, digitization also of the private sector services. And that as well has gone into is contributing at least to Rwanda achieving some of these 2030 milestones. On the digital skills, because there's been intentional programs. One of them that started way back in 2009 was the One Laptop Per Child that aimed at distributing laptops. Now, it wasn't perfect. But a lot of lessons were picked from that. And today, the first Rwanda Coding Academy, which is a specialist kind of a school, which takes in top of the class students from all level, and focuses those engineering skills. Right from the age of 16, they're able to now work with industry professionals. So it's not just the traditional teachers or lecturers that are teaching them. It's professionals that have come from industry that are training them. And we've had the first number of graduates. I think the first few hundreds of graduates, a lot of them going to Ivy League universities outside, but also some of them staying in the country and working is where they go to do. So but that's one layer. The second layer is to say, okay, if we are to continue digitizing, today more than 120 government services are digitized. But if we were to digitize all these 600 plus government services and private sector services, is our population literate enough, digital literate enough, that they are able to listen and use this? That at the second, maybe I call it like this, local government level to the smallest administrative range of government, where now they're training citizens services, accessing tools, etc. So that million citizens. We've so far got about 5,000 plus digital ambassadors, and those are government ambassadors. But on the private sector, we also have more than 10,000. And these take the nature of an agent. I think we're all familiar with MTN or telecom agents in our countries. And these are closer to the populace and providing the digital literacy, but also providing, they have access, it's an employment, it's a kind of job and employment that they are also involved in the digital and the broader digital economy. So from that level down to the highest, so you have basic digital literacy, intermediate, which is mostly for office workers, for productivity at work, and then advanced, which is mostly the ICT intensive companies that hire graduates, ICT graduates. So the question then on whose job is it? I think it's everyone. The programs that we run, those that are looking at the population, the citizen outreaches, they're run mostly by government agencies, and those that are B2B or B2G or G2B type of services are mostly run by the private sector. So it's a multi-stakeholder relationship that really the way we've seen it work in Rwanda, and that also now feeds into the rest of the other aspects, which are the digital innovation ecosystems. And even those, how we've built them has been a partnership. And government working with the private sector and academia, whether it's setting up innovation hubs in the universities or in colleges, or the ones that we have outside universities and colleges, but also working closely with the universities. So yeah, I'll pause there on whose role it is. It's everyone, because as the private sector, we know that if the population we're trying to target with our products is not digitally literate, does not have access, then we actually we're investing in the wrong place.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the deep insights into what's going on in Rwanda and sharing all that experience. And thank you also for the multi-stakeholder approach you mentioned as a way to deal with those issues. There's no one entity who will be responsible. Although I would have loved still to then determine who has what part of the responsibilities. So we can again narrow down to who exactly do we hold accountable for what exactly in the whole mix of multi-stakeholder approach. But that's okay, it's fantastic. We'll hear, there are questions already in the chat box. I would ask that you go.
So I'll respond to, I'll speak into that. So when we design our strategies, we map out the different, I mean, everyone is familiar with log frames. So the log frame will be clear. This element will be handled by this institution. This element will be handled by this institution. So everyone knows what their role is, and you know who is feeding what. For example, when we worked on data governance and cybersecurity, we work with the National Cybersecurity Authority. They have the Data Protection Office, and our role is to create awareness in the private sector, train up facilitators or train up the lawyers and all these stakeholders that are in that. And then the DPO sets, the Data Protection Office sets the criteria of who gets the licenses and how, if there's any bottleneck, we know, okay, this is where, this is who to call, this is who to contact, these are the procedures. So it is not perfect. I don't want to leave the illusion that it is perfect, but at least we have an interoperable type of model that allows us to get certain things done.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. But as I listen to you still, it occurred to me, and I think we should recommend this to Secretariat in the report they'll put together, so we can have a program that is focused on experience sharing across Africa, so countries can say what has worked for them, what strategies are working for them, so other countries can share their own experiences, so can have an African approach to the issues if it's possible. So Rwanda might want to lend help to the next neighbor, for example, and then Ghana might want to see what Kenya has done, which Ghana can also adopt. That might be the next level to drive this still deep and down to specifics. So experience sharing might be another level to take this discussion to. But thank you so far, and I will encourage you to look at the chat box to see what questions apply to you while I return to Maud. Maud, is she still with us?
I'm right here.
I'm giving Alex a breather, so I return to you, and I want you to talk about the gender, the inclusivity. You highlighted it also in your presentation, but I wanted a bit more, so let's narrow to who is responsible for what. How do we get the gender equality or narrowing the gender divide, if there is any such thing? And who should we be talking to in the future for it?
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited and I have to talk about women. Yeah, it's my niche. Okay. We've always, from statistics, there's always been a digital divide, when it comes to things that we're dealing with women, and not just women, other sensitive groups like persons with disability and the youth. One thing we realize is that if we really use technology well, that gap will be bridged. And another thing that I've observed, whilst interacting with women, when one woman understands how to use technology, invest in that one woman, for her to have that digital skill, for her to understand where we are going, for her to buy into that vision. And you'll be amazed the number of people who would understand and go by it. So that is the perspective I want us to look at this. And also, you know how women are. When we are developing our apps, I wouldn't say make it feminine, but the idea of making sure that it's not okay. I come from a computer science background, and I've been a programmer most part of my life until I doing my PhD, and I moved into information systems, where now I'm looking at the user of the system. This is where you get to understand, okay, so we just sit and think that this is what our user needs, and then we develop the apps and the softwares for them. But when we get to go in to interview them, use other methodologies, observations, document analysis, and then interview, you get to understand the context and even the person, the culture, everything about the person, such that when you are coding, you make it more interactive, more appreciated, and more user-friendly and usable. So with that, all I'm saying is we should just not talk about digital. We should pay attention to context. The different groups, what do they need to make sure that they would understand our vision, get to understand the solutions we are putting across. And you realize that the joy to study it, the joy to understand it will be higher. We should also focus on persons with disability. It's so important. Maybe because with my interaction or with my work with Internet Society Ghana chapter I joined for the past 12 years. We go out there to advocate about the internet, how to build it, how to make sure how it's protected, and also to bring inclusivity. So those are the times I got to understand it's important to not just develop, when we are developing technologies, building technologies, we must pay critical attention to all these special groups, something for the blind, something for, those who are having all other challenges, and it's doable. When I attend scientific conferences, you get to know the different ideas that are coming up, these wearables, technologies that are coming, they are all technologies to just support and make sure that everybody is technologically inclined and also uses technology to advance in whatever sphere they are in. So this is it. Let's not just do mass production of technology, but we should segregate it to suit the needs of the different groups that we have. And I'll still reiterate that for our children, as a mother, I am always fighting my son why he's always playing games, But I thought about it. I said, okay, why don't I program? Maybe I can program. So why don't I develop games where I'm going to put in mathematics, when you jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and then you jump another 4, what do you think would be by the time you realize they are learning mathematics without having any stress. So what we do as educationists is to monitor the generation, what is worrying them, or what they are into, what excites them, and use that excitement as a way of teaching them to survive, and then use it as a platform for advancement. So this is it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maud. Thank you very much. But I just wouldn't let you off that easily. One last question.
Yes,
one last question.
You asked me to make recommendation for infrastructure. You know that when we talk about infrastructure in terms of technology, it is capital intensive. Capital intensive. And individuals cannot do this. Mainly, governments must decide to invest and must invest. And imagine, we're just talking about holding hands. So imagine all of Africa decides to put in resources to get very good, this all depends. In the research area, AFREN is Africa Regional Education Network. One of the things they do is that assuming one university, so it works with Association of Africa Universities. What they do is if a university has a lab, high-tech lab with the most recent machines, is it not better to collaborate such that the students or faculty from the other universities would sort of use those resources and then help with research, rather than each university trying to invest in these very capital-intensive equipment. So every country definitely would have some strength. Others will be stronger than others. The stronger ones must hold hands. I also believe in knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing. If Rwanda, looking at the plan they have for digital skills, from the lower level to the top, they share these ideas, not just sharing. So that's knowledge sharing. You share it, you not just share it, you make sure that where you are sharing it, they are following. They are following to the latter, or to even contextualize it. But at the end of the day, there is some form. I've personally realized that we really talk about these things, but we do not see them to the end. There should be some form of evaluation, some form of monitoring, some form of compliance, so that at the end of the day, we see to it that it comes to a good end. I must attest to the fact that after going through the AU Digital Strategy document, I was impressed by those who put it together. It's great, but let's make sure it is implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. What I wanted to ask you as a last question really was, who would you like us to invite if we have a session on sharing information regarding gender inclusivity? What kind of institution would you want us to be on the panel? Is it government? Is it
What
private?
kind of?
If we wanted to
Okay.
open the discussion,
Both.
both?
Both. And
Both.
even I mean, both government, private sector, and individuals who are passionate,
and
and
academia as
also
well.
and also civil society. You know, we have
Civil
a lot of
society.
civil society groups that have interest in women,
Yes.
you know, and all that.
Okay. So because it's a multi-stakeholder approach to solving the problem. Thank you very much. We will now let others from the audience ask their questions. The first to go is my pleasure to yield the microphone to the chair of the AfICTA Advisory Board, Dr. Jameson Olufuye, for his own intervention while we wait for the other persons who are on the call. Will Dr. Olufuye please turn on his microphone? Great. You can ask now. Or well, make your intervention, generally speaking.
Okay. So greetings, my friends, everyone. Hi, Alex. Hi, Mr. Adil. Thank you so much for joining us. And Madam Adile, thank you very, very much. Great presentations and interventions. If you permit me, I just want to give a little background so that the messages can really sink in well. At this point, we know that we're trying to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 2030. And we're already halfway out into it, halfway, we are past 50%, okay? So, but the level of 18%, we only achieved 17% of the goals of the SDG. So that means we are really far behind, and that is the justification of the Global Digital Compact, to accelerate the process. And that's why we commend the AU for at least carving out the African perspective, you know, towards achieving this. So it's very commendable. In fact, this is part of the WSIS. Some that could remember the WSIS 2003 in Geneva and 2000 Information Society, so that we can have a solution to join hands to achieve this. And I'm glad Mr. Adil has been working with us in AfICTA, and we hope we can do more. But I just also want to mention some key points in terms of initiative of this digital transformation agenda. The Continental Digital Single Market, the initiative for Continental Digital Single Market, that Africa Continental Free Trade Zone is a very commendable effort and achievement of AU. We commend AU for that seriously. And we know that there are instruments that are necessary, like one network, African network, is very, very important. And there should be regional network, where there should be, of course, national network flowing together so that they can all match eventually. And also when it comes to the data policy, it's very important we harmonize our data laws. So there has to be a kind of a means, maybe peer reviews, maybe an observatory to see, to rank our progress. We commend what Rwanda is doing since 2012, Transform Africa Initiative. They've been setting the pace, highly commendable. So we want what they are doing to be a kind of a challenge in a kind of an index that everybody can see, just as I mentioned on the chart, what we have like this global cybersecurity index. So for that initiative of continental digital single market to be achieved, we need to really have proactive initiative to get it through. Of course, we're not discounting the educational perspective, which is very fundamental, okay? Then we talk about Digital Innovation Entrepreneurship Fund. There is a startup act in Nigeria that also have kind of a startup fund to support startups. So those are the things that we need to see around that could enable young people with innovation to come up with the ideas and then put in the market. Then also developing cybersecurity framework and response mechanism. Well, we would like to see this African Center that UNECA and AU, they work to put in Togo. We'd like to see it working. The African Center for the Coordination and Research in Cybersecurity that was established in March 2022. We need to activate it. What is holding it? And also, even now, some of us will come up with some framework, from the global south to measure our cybersecurity maturity level. With UNECA coming up with a report that shows that when we do invest, surely GDP per capita will increase. GDP per capita will increase when we invest in the internet penetration, broadband, when we invest in our cybersecurity maturity in the digital era, it will boost productivity. So it's a positive thing, okay? And then, of course, everybody needs to be included. The private sector, the civil society, academic community. And this is where I want to close by encouraging AU. We want to really appreciate that AU has felt that there should be no creation of new institution to drive the digital compact. That is our position in the private sector, because we already have an institution, okay, to push these things. For example, when it comes to domain infrastructure, we have ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Number, and they are talking about IPv6 infrastructure. That is an area we need to, push. IT is also there, talking about ITUT, ITUD, and they are doing a lot too. So we need all the institutions working. IGF is working well. We need to enhance it. Digital compact issue could come under that too. And so that the thing is that we just need to synergize more. The multi-stakeholder inclusive framework must be seen to be working. Therefore, the office to be set up at the UN headquarters, because there is a provision in the digital compact that an office will be set up at the United Nations headquarters. We want a situation whereby the private sector also be part of how it flows. Because, as you know, much of the infrastructure, they are being driven by the private sector. Ideas are from other stakeholders. Government is about policy and direction. But we all need to make sure that there is meaningful participation. And that is why we want to encourage AU to canvas for a framework whereby the private sector too can be involved in that new UN office for Global Data Compact. Just like Absolutely. The CSTD is involve other stakeholders in what they do. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Fantastic, Dr. Olufuye, fantastic. And I just needed to highlight this fact. You hinted at it. AU, of course, will be at the Global Digital Compact in New York. And my understanding is that you're certainly asking AU to also canvass the position of African businesses. And incidentally, I know that you will be leading the AfICTA delegation to that New York event. I want to say here, if there is any persons who will be attending from any of our countries, not just on this platform for this event, it may be good to link up with Dr. Olufuye in New York and have this discussion with African Union, because we do have them represented on this program, and they are interested in pursuing the agenda that are being canvassed on this forum. So in recommending, I would say the Secretary can note that this event agreed, if that's okay with everybody, that we implore the AU to always or continue to canvass the interest of industry, business entities as part of the multi-stakeholder groupings that influence the outcome of such international programs like the GDC. That's my recommendation as a takeaway from today's event, because both AfICTA and AU will be in New York for the Global Digital Compact. So there must be synergy to see how businesses will benefit from the new direction, from even the office that will be set up in New York. Thank you, Dr. Lufuye, for your intervention. Let's move on to a few more questions. We've overshot the tentative timing by 6 minutes, but I had prepared for actually 30 minutes of extra time. If we end by 12, that wouldn't be bad. 12 would mean 2 hours from when we started. Jose, you want to speak? See if you can turn on your microphone. Great. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much to our panelists for providing all this comprehensive knowledge on digital agenda and all drive. Very, very commendable. My question is, where does the willpower lies when it comes to this digitalization agenda? A lot has been said, and many scholars, for instance, in Ghana, have articulated where the digitalization agenda, they had it wrong, also the whole digital transformation, they've had it wrong. And it seems that we are still on the same path, the same trajectory. Same can be said for other African countries. And I'm trying to get a sense, where does the willpower lies? Willpower is perhaps the most important aspect in decision making, is the ability to override an unwanted thoughts, the feeling on impulse. So I'm just trying to see, we can design all these frameworks, we can design all these things, but where lies the accountability? Where that lies the willpower? What's our stake in it? Yes, thank you very much.
Who did you want to respond? Which
Any of the panelists.
Any
of them can take it. Yes.
Well, who wants to go?
Yeah, let me take
Adil? Okay, great.
Yes, please. Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, I think this is a very pertinent question. In my original remark, I talked about the political will in Africa, unfortunately, is lacking. I think this is a fact. And I think this has been a problem. And that's why in the African Digital Compact, we try to focus on socioeconomic growth and development, and job creation. So these kind of things will attract the politicians. And to the point that mentioned by Dr. Jameson, the last point, also cybersecurity is very important. We need to make sure that our digital space is secured and trusted, because most of these policymakers, they have zero trust in the digital environment. And we need to bridge this trust gap so that they're going to be part of it. We will try, and I think, and usually also when you propose something to the policymakers, usually they will ask you, if I invest X dollar, what would be return of investment? I think this is a very difficult question to answer when it comes to the digital transformation. Because it's a long-term investment, and I think they have to understand, these politicians, that this is whether we like it or not, we have to be part of this digital transformation as Africans. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind, and we don't want to be left behind, and we want to be part of this digital transformation journey. I think it's crucial that we get them on board. Usually, our messagings, they have to be refined. They have to be talking to their concern. In terms, as I mentioned, the African Digital Compact was focusing more on on growth and job creations, and tackling issue related to cybersecurity, personal data protection, and things like that. This kind of things will get them on board, slowly on board. But yes, I think it's very important. Otherwise, I think we will not move far. If we don't have our politicians with us on this journey, I think it's going to be very difficult for us to make progress. We can develop frameworks, we can do a lot of things, but if they are not part of this, I think we will struggle to make tangible and concrete progress. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I understand Chiwe has been showing her interest to speak. Chiwe Obuja, why not? I can see your hand now. I didn't see it before. Forgive me. Let's hear you now.
Okay. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me, please?
You're not very audible. Can you raise your voice or your volume?
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm trying to get my audio right. Can you hear me now? Can anybody hear me now?
Much better. Much better.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, and good morning from Abuja, Nigeria. It's 11:41. I've listened to the entire conversation. I would like to say that yes, Africa is on course. However, I have a few questions because I've listened to both the professor and every other person who has spoken. For me, I've also gone through the AU document, and I saw a part of it that was very interesting to me. That mentioned something around the goal that we hope to achieve. So I would like to ask, yes, it says support. So all our people should be digitally, that's section C of this document, digitally empowered to access safely and securely to at least 6 Mbps all the time, where more than 1 CTC USD per MB through a smart device manufactured in the continent at the price of no more than 100 USD to benefit from all. That's a very tall order. This is 2024 already. On this, I would like to know if there are countries or there are alliances or there are frameworks already attempting to ensure that by 2030, even if it's not all of some of it will be met. That's one. Two, is AfICTA doing anything regarding trying to at least even make, even if it's just one of these, to be possible? That's number one. That's what question number one. Two is, I also know that there's been a few internet shutdowns here and there where governments take all the powers into their hands and they shut down in the internet for whatever reason. If this document also has factored that in, and what are the punitive measures, or what are the things we are doing to engage this government to let them know this document is backtracked by how many months or how many years? I may not be able to quantify that, but are we having those conversations? And lastly, you mentioned something about content. What are we doing as Africa to ensure that it becomes something of like a mandate for government, for institutions to ensure that the content consumed by our students are not just content that are not produced here in Africa? And what are we doing to also encourage educative and insightful content production? Content costs money, but content is also very powerful. So these are my questions. Any of the panelists can answer that. Thank you very much.
Chiwe, you've asked 3 questions in all. Thank you anyway, but in my opinion, that would be a fitting way to bring the session almost to a close. 3 questions for 3 speakers. Why not? But I'll encourage any of the speakers to also make their closing comments when they respond to any of your 3 questions. In other words, we'll give chance for each speaker, each panelist and the main speaker to give a closing remark of a sentence or 2 as this round of questions is answered. Who's going first? Okay, Alex. Okay, if you respond, make your last statement as well in closing. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I think we keep coming back to whose responsibility is it, in a way, one way or another. And I think what was mentioned about political will, or will to start with, there needs to be vision and a shared vision, whether that is with the private sector, the government. And I think the fact that the AU has clearly given us a roadmap, or at least some of these aspects that need to be covered, there is there is something to work with. Now, if each of us took their piece out, I know some of the pieces are dependent on others. My view, infrastructure is the biggest, is very, very key, because once internet and connectivity is there, then investments into devices are justifiable, because services and education and skilling, the content can be accessed or can be is there on the internet. There's a lot of content, whether that content is made in Africa or made somewhere else. What we have seen is that the internet levels the playing field in many aspects. So the call I would put out for all of us is really trying to look at what our, maybe at the individual level, it may be very small, or it may, but even at institutional, at the institution level, what is my role? Because if we look at our case in Rwanda and we can cover a percentage of what we're doing, then that contributes to the big picture in the broad scheme of things, which is the AU digital agenda. So the collaborations are needed, sharing experiences is needed. We have different contexts. We can always edit, contextualize. And going back to a question that was earlier asked by Dr. Jimson on, say, Transform Africa initiative. The Transform Africa initiative that started out in 2013 in Rwanda now is, I think, is part of the broader AU agenda as well, with over 30 plus member states that have signed up to the Smart Africa Alliance. And each country has a flagship project. For example, Tunisia has a focus on startups or digital innovation ecosystem. Rwanda has on smart cities, and all the other countries also have different, all the 30 have different. Some have infrastructure. Some are looking at ICT and digital literacy. So looking at the collaborations, and I think here on the platform, we have several of us are coming from different countries. We can look at some of these because they're blueprints that have been shared. Or digital literacy blueprint from what Tunisia built on Startup Acts. And I know that's the same blueprint that has worked across in many other countries. I know Ghana launched their Startup Act, I think recently, last year or early this year or the year before. I think Nigeria was mentioned to have started some of these. I think the Startup Act is already active in Nigeria. But these have all been fruits of these collaborations. And I believe there's more that needs to be done. And unfortunately, I can't answer Chinwe's question on to what degree this has been, to what degree, given that we have 6 years left, how much of it has been achieved. I know even from Rwanda, I know some aspects that have been achieved, but there's a lot way more to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's it. That's your own closing. Thank you very much, Alex, for it. So let's listen to Maud make her own closing comments.
I have a story to share. This is a story I heard just yesterday at an event where there was a village that's where their source of water was a river that looked polluted. And an NGO decided to support them by, giving them clean source of water through a borehole close to their homes. But after a while, they realized that these women started going back to the river again. And they went back to ask them, why? Why are you going back to the water that is contaminated and is not good for you? And they said that we are grateful for the good source of water that you've given us, but there was something that was missing, and that was the opportunity to talk whilst going to the riverside. What am I saying? Most of the time, we feel we are solving issues or problems the way we feel is good for the people, without taking account the culture and the few things within it, the little nitty-gritties in it that make them comfortable. These women, when they are going to the riverside, that is the time they're able to gossip. That's the time they're able to share ideas, talk about, vent out or rant, whatever is happening in their homes, get new ideas. But while that new source of water is close to the home, how would they be able to do that in the presence of their children and their spouse? Coming back to what we are talking about, it's important to communicate this agenda. We must communicate our vision. We must communicate our mission to the people with whom or for whom we are developing this for. And that is a huge gap that I'm seeing. It's interesting, we attend these interesting meetings, AU meetings, but when we come back, do we communicate what the decisions taken were? Did we come down, trigger it down for others to understand? I always say that for change to occur, people must understand where they are going, and it makes change management very easy. We are not communicating what is going on. We are assuming people understand, but they do not.
Communication.
And yes. And when we do that, you realize that they will follow through. Another thing is implementation. When implementation starts, we should hold people accountable. We should have monitoring and evaluation systems, and we should have compliance systems. So it means that we should have regulatory frameworks in place that would streamline and put everybody in line. And that is important. If you want this to work, we must imbibe all these that I've said. And thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you. I'm afraid we just have to close, but if Mr. Suleiman has one sentence to part with us, we'll be happy to hear him. Just one sentence.
My sentence would be thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Looking forward to future interaction with you guys. And I really learned and enjoyed this session. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to ask the chair, Vice Chair for West Africa, Mrs. Ariola Akiyemi, Vice Chair for AfICTA. If you could please close.
Sorry, before the Vice Chair, West Africa comes in, maybe good for the audience to hear the report of the poll that has been conducted, which is very positive. It's quite impressive that it's positive. So, and if I may just indicate two of it, say, is AU agenda achievable? So 52% said yes, which is really interesting. And the biggest challenge is political will, 56%. I just felt we need to indicate that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's have Ms. Ariola weigh in and make closing comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Inyeke Mabunta. Thank you, everyone. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I cannot believe this has come to an end. It seems like we should just continue. So as we come to the conclusion of the 16th edition of the AfICTA eConference, I extend my deepest gratitude to our esteemed speakers, the panelists, moderator, the participants, AfICTA chair for her leadership, guidance, and support, the AfICTA Advisory Council, members of the organizing committee of this conference, that's Mr. Timileyin Ambali and Mr. Laikana Koulibaly from Côte d'Ivoire, and also to my colleagues at the AfICTA. Indeed, your contributions have been instrumental in shaping this the discourse around the AU Digital Agenda 2030. I would also like to especially thank our sponsors, Data Analytics Privacy Technologies Limited, Contemporary Consulting, Digispel Limited, .ng, Diamond Securities from Côte d'Ivoire too, for their generous support, which has enabled us to convey this critical conversation. Today's theme is quite interesting, the AU Digital Agenda, achievable or unattainable. It has ignited a critical conversation about Africa's digital future, aligning the AU's vision of a digitally transformed continent by 2030. Well, we have gone ahead to explore the imperative of accelerating digital infrastructure development, enhancing digital skills and capacity development, promoting digital innovation and entrepreneurship, strengthening digital governance and cybersecurity. Despite all the challenges being experienced in our region, today's discussion have demonstrated a strong commitment to overcoming the obstacles and achieving the AU's digital vision. From the pool, we can see that we are willing to work together and to make it happen. We have heard, innovative approaches from diverse stakeholders. So I believe that we have underscored the essence of collaboration, partnership, the multi-stakeholderism that is the global best practices for addressing issues. And I believe that once we come together, we can do it. As AfICTA Vice Chair for West Africa, permit me to emphasize that today's conversation is just the beginning. The journey to a digitally transformed Africa requires sustained effort, and AfICTA is dedicated to facilitating this vital discourse and support initiatives that propel Africa's digital agenda forward in line with our vision, fulfilling the promise of the digital age for all. We look forward to your continued engagement in future AfICTA engagements as we collectively champion digital transformation across the continent. Thank you all for your inspiring participation. Together, we can turn Africa's digital vision into a reality and create a brighter future for all. Thank you all for being part of this. See you soon.
Wonderful. A fitting end to today's program. Not anything more to say from me then.
How about a group photo possible?
Okay, turn on your cameras if you can. I have just about 4 seconds to closing. We can take that right away.
All right, so I'll be coordinating that in a few seconds.
Please go ahead.
We all have our videos on. Okay, that is great.
Wonderful. So from me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's have a good day and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Cheers.
God bless you.
So the interlude.
As recording stopped.